Good morning and welcome to the latest installation of the Affiliate Insider from the Business One community. The Business One community is proud to have with us here today Richard Duffy and Moshe Nachman from Pure to talk about making AI real for SAP Business One today. The Business One community is here to increase product awareness, provide access to resources, and create safe spaces for collaboration. On your screen, you should see a couple of QR codes to visit our forums and to register so you can contribute and participate in those forums. It's a great way to communicate, ask questions, get more information about your product, and increase your return on investment in SAP Business One. But we're not here to listen to me today. We're here to listen to Richard, who pretty much needs little introduction to those of you who've been in the Business One community for a while. He's the former product evangelist, founder of both SMB Solutions, a cloud hosting company, and Pure, an AI company. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Gary, and I appreciate having the opportunity to present. So, what qualifies us to talk about making AI real for SAP Business One today? Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Pure, but we've been working in this space now for more than 2 years, building the product, working with pilot customers and pilot partners with the product. And many of you may be aware, we've actually even been presenting the product at various SAP partner conferences around the world. Matter of fact, I think the first prototype we showed of the product was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was in Madrid and Phoenix at the SAP partner summits that occurred there. I had the opportunity to present from the main stage, albeit very, very briefly. So we're speaking from a perspective of experience of working with customers who put their hands up and said, we really like what we've seen with Pure AI, and we want to go on that journey. So what exactly does that look like? I'll just give you a quick overview, and along the way, I'm going to talk to you about the things that we have learned from the projects that have been successful and the things that we've learned from the projects that have been not as successful. Because the amazing thing about AI is that it is so many different things to different people. You put 10 people in a room and you ask them for their definition of AI, and everyone will have a different definition. But anyway, what is Pure.ai? Well, it's really a platform that delivers agentic AI agents for SAP Business One. And it's designed to help customers in the Business One target market, which, as you all know, because you're either a Business One partner or a Business One customer, a small and mid-sized businesses. So Pure is really designed to help people unlock new levels of efficiency, automation, and intelligence. And our vision, our goal when we built Pure was to be the most trusted AI layer for the SAP B1 community. And trust is a very important word when we're talking about AI. So let's talk about, the reality that drove the creation of Pure. I mean, we all know and love SAP Business One. There are 80, the number tends to go up and down a little bit, but right now, let's say that there are 83,000 small and mid-sized enterprises using SAP Business One. So it's a single global ERP backbone for the SME community. So it's not an understatement to say that SAP Business One as an ERP product is one that really does help power the SME economy. And it provides that functionality that we're all familiar with that an ERP should across finance, inventory, operations. But more importantly, it's mission critical. The ERP solution is mission critical for the customers who use it. But the hard truth about Business One and about many ERP products, even the ERP products that, claim to be cutting edge, many of them were built before AI was even a thing. So these systems, these ERP systems, are built for transactions. They're built for structure. They are what we would call, when we're talking about things from an AI perspective, they are deterministic systems. Okay, so they have very rigid controls and very rigid structure, which, let's face it, that's what you want with an ERP solution. But they're not built for this kind of intelligence. Now, we can have a debate whether or not artificial intelligence really is intelligent, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But they're not. The Business One was not really built for that level of intelligence. So, there's a certain friction that everybody feels that ERP is powerful, but it's passive. It sits there and users wait for answers. You've got to go and generate reports before you can make decisions. There's expertise bottlenecks. For a lot of people, how well you use SAP Business One comes down to how good your people are, what level of skill you have access to, either from your partner or from the people inside your organization. And there's manual validation everywhere. That's just the nature of ERP systems. So, if you think about it, that presents us with a challenge. Now, add to that the fact that the world has now moved and we've now entered what we would call the agentic era. People are looking for systems that guide, systems that reason. I wouldn't say systems that think, because they don't really think, they reason. And they want at the same time systems that execute. So we believe the solution is a new category, what we call the AI operating layer for SAP Business One. It's not a chatbot. It's not a bolt-on. It's actually a persistent intelligence layer. And one of the things that we've seen, and based on the feedback from customers, ERP is like the smartest SAP Business One consultant that you can have, and it's always on call for you. So solving that gap that I was talking about before, about for want of another way of putting it, let's call it the knowledge gap, ERP helps to address that. So what ERP does is it helps you basically move your Business One system, because it was only built for Business One. It's purely designed for Business One. It moves your Business One from being a system of record, which is, now these are the new buzzwords, okay, that people are all talking about. Go to any ERP vendors conference or any tech conference these days that involves ERP and AI, and they talk about ERP being the system of record, and they talk about AI being a system of intelligence. What ERP does is it moves SAP Business One to, when it's working together with ERP, from a system of record to a system of intelligence. You get instant SAP answers. You get structured, deterministic automation in some aspects. Importantly, you get governed actions and you get ERP native intelligence. So, the big challenge that we face, getting into the topic of what have we learned along the way as we've been working with customers, is when you think about why the traditional AI that many of us think about, which is the large language models, Claude, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, these generative AI applications tend to fail in the ERP space because of the way that ERP is. SAP is not a playground for you and your people to go and start connecting up Model Context Protocol or MCP server and start asking questions just by connecting to, let's say, the service layer. Because generative AI doesn't really provide out-of-the-box structure. It doesn't provide out-of-the-box governance. It doesn't provide ERP native context, and it has massive security exposure that needs to be managed. So this is one of the biggest challenges, and we have seen this in being a cloud provider as well. When we've had customers reach out and say to us, hey, we want to connect Claude into our SAP Business One. We had one customer who one of their people who was being proactive, said, we've got one of our young guys who's really good with this stuff. We want to give him access. He got access to the system, and he rang me one day and said, I'm having a few problems here. And I said, well, what are you connecting to? And he said, I'm connecting to this company. I said, well, that's your productive environment. You're playing around in your productive environment. And his answer was, yeah, is that a problem? Well, of course it was. So, there's a number of challenges that need to be resolved with guardrails. And those guardrails are the missing piece in most projects where we have gone and we've started talking to people where they're starting to work with connecting their SAP Business One deployment to an AI solution or a large language model. So, rather than try and say to people, hey, what we're going to give you is we're going to give you an MCP engine, and we're going to deliver that to you and you can have at it, which is actually what SAP have said they're going to do, which, we've all got opinions. My view of SAP's strategy that they've been talking about, which is they're going to provide an open source MCP engine to people and publish it on GitHub. This is like giving a toddler a loaded gun with the safety off. It's challenging, to say the least. So what we've made sure we've done is we've built a solution that's got intelligent, and we use the term pre-trained AI agents. That implies that you have to actually do training of the agents. That's not so much the case because of how we built it. But we provided these AI agents that are able to execute Business One tasks and respond to natural language queries to provide answers and insights. So the thing is, what people have told us that they want to do is they want to start getting a single point for their AI automation from day one. They don't want to be trying to build and cobble together these different solutions. Having said that, one of the things that's important to understand is that there is a place in your AI landscape for a solution like Pure, which understands your SAP Business One intimately and has all the guardrails, has all the governance, has all the trust built in, and utilizing it hand in hand with something like Claude or ChatGPT, because they perform different tasks. Okay, so important. I'm not saying that Pure or any other solution replaces some of those things. What I am saying is that we have seen that those tools on their own do not get people to where they want to be with AI for SAP Business One. So we've focused on delivering that single point AI automation from day one. We integrate with familiar tools with minimal setup, assuming that your Business One architecture is well structured. We can actually get you up and running in 15 minutes. But that's a really important point to note. I said, assuming your Business One infrastructure is well structured. Business One has an incredible back-end architecture that's facilitated us to be able to build ER Pure. What you can do with the service layer, with the API gateway, with all of the tools that SAP are providing now is amazing. But it requires skill and understanding to provision it correctly and securely. So this is one of the areas that we've found when people say, hey, I want to start doing this, they look, or we look, or they look at their SAP deployment and suddenly realize they are way behind on their release cycles. They don't have access to the tools that they need. The infrastructure they have in place is not correctly configured to allow utilization of things like the service layer. So this is a major challenge as well. So as you're thinking about AI, you really need to be making sure that you do not have a huge amount of technical debt built up caused by the fact that you haven't upgraded your SAP Business One in the last 4 years. We've encountered people where they go, oh, well, we're on version 10. We should be okay, right? Well, which version of version 10? Oh, that we're on the very first release. Well, that was back in 2022. And if everybody remembers that. And now there are Business One updates coming out every 3 months. We get service packs twice a year, and we get feature packs twice a year. That is delivering a huge amount of capability and capacity and new ways of being able to utilize this technology. But if you're not deploying it, you've got a big problem when it comes time to start trying to utilize these solutions. Now, should you be in the cloud? Should you be on premise? Really, in the context of what we deliver, it really doesn't matter. Whether you're in the cloud or you're on premise, as long as your system is up to date and is technology aware, that you're using things like public certificates for all of your infrastructure. You're not using self-signed certificates, which SAP don't support anymore. So there's a whole range of those things that as you're thinking about AI, you need to make sure you've ticked all of those boxes. When you've done that, tools like ER Pure can integrate with minimal setup. And then we can deliver answers with detailed insights when asked. We can deliver answers with just quick and simple answers, or you can go ahead like you can with any LLM and you can ask it to provide more detailed processes. You'll see this with the different models. And we can accelerate everyday ERP tasks like entering orders, like processing AP invoices, like doing master file updates, all kinds of different things. This is what we've been able to do. So let's talk for a second. We provide two components: a conversational query agent and autonomous document intelligence agents. I'm going to show you these in a minute. But let's just quickly, before we go into that, let's actually talk a little bit more about the learnings that we've had. And I'm going to not necessarily, I don't have slides behind all of this, but the thing that we've found is that it is such a big learning curve that people need to go through. It really is a journey. And like any journey, if you want to climb Mount Everest, that takes commitment. I'm not saying deploying AI is like climbing Mount Everest, but I'm saying it's a significant task, and that significant task requires commitment. It requires everybody to be on the same page. It requires everybody to understand what AI is and what it is not, what it can deliver and what it cannot deliver. So for many people who have been exposed to this wall of AI marketing, for many people, they actually think that AI is almost like magic. Well, we don't think AI is magic. AI, in many respects, is predictive. The tools that you use are predictive. Is it intelligent? Does it truly think? No. But the way you interact with it and the way that you use these tools can give you the impression that it is intelligent. But in fact, it's just an imitation of the process of intelligence and thought. So the other thing that you need to look at, and I referred back to this about ER Pure being a tool, and then Claude being a tool, and ChatGPT being a tool. Inside Claude, you've got Claude Cowork, then you've got Claude Code. You've got all of these different components that vendors are offering you when it comes to building an AI-based solution. But it's a set of tools. So one of the most important things that you need to understand is what these tools are, and having the right tool to solve the right problem. But that requires skill and understanding. So it requires people to really begin that journey. Now, there are lots of people out there right now telling the world that they are AI experts. Be very careful. Oftentimes, I can be a little bit cynical because I've been doing ERP since I was 23 and I'm now 62. An expert is somebody who knows a little bit more than you do. So you really do have to be careful when you're talking to people to really make sure that they understand what ERP is about and what AI for ERP is all about. There's lots of people out there who know about AI, but when it comes to connecting it to your ERP, they don't necessarily understand that. So, you've got to get the right people with the right tools, solving the right problem. And you have to make sure as part of that you have a set of realistic expectations. And then you have to understand how to use the tools. And about a year ago, when people were talking about using AI, one of the things that was discussed was everybody was saying, you know what, the next big job that is going to be out there for people is being a prompt engineer. Well, here's the thing. That as a job doesn't really exist per se. I'll tell you why. Because once you start utilizing AI, and this is what we've seen, once customers start using AI, one of the biggest challenges that they have is being able to prompt effectively, knowing how to write the right prompts. So what does that mean? If you're going to use AI, you have to learn to become a prompt engineer. But here's the great thing about the large language models. You could go into Claude, for example. Let's say you were using ER Pure, and you were thinking, okay, what are some of the prompts that I could use to get information out of ER Pure? You could go to Claude, for example, and you could say, I have an agentic AI solution connected to my SAP Business One system, and I'm a wholesale distributor of electrical components. Give me the top 10 prompts that I could use to help me manage my inventory more effectively. So Claude can sit there and give you all those prompts. Okay, but that leads me to one of the challenges is that you have to be successful, you have to have a business case. I talked about projects we have that have been successful and projects that have not. The projects that have not been successful have been the projects where the desire was to have AI. There's a cartoon, I'm sure you've all seen it, a guy standing in front of a room full of CEOs. Say, what do we want? The answer comes back, AI. When do we want it? Now. Why do we want it? We have no idea. When do we want it? Now. And this is something you really need to be very, very careful of, is making sure that once you've got this bright, shiny tool, and you can get ER Pure and we can connect it up for you, again, infrastructure permitting, in 15 minutes, and you can start pulling data. But if you haven't got a clear picture of what the problem is that you're trying to solve, then your AI initiative will struggle. You'll struggle to get traction. You'll struggle to get buy-in. But for those of you who've been in this space for a long time, I mean, this is IT project 101. I mean, this is any business improvement project 101. Make sense? So you've got to have a really good business case. So then, having said all of that, what I'd like to do is just spend 15 to 20 minutes and just show you some examples of the things that I'm talking about by showing you a live demo of ER Pure. And when I say a live demo, I don't know if many of you have been to any presentations recently of people talking about SAP Business One and AI. I've been to a lot, and a lot of the presentations are recorded videos. I'm not going to do a recorded video. I'm actually going to show you the product live. So with ER Pure, we have a number of ways that the product can be deployed. I'm going to show you our newest generation, which is our web chat. And the idea behind our web chat is that because it's browser-based, you can access it quickly and easily. Now, the very first thing you need to do when you sign in is you identify yourself. And we use either Microsoft accounts or Google accounts. So you can use your Microsoft or your Google account as your identity provider. We bind that user, that account, across to your user in SAP Business One. And this is how we control access to the information. So you can see right now, I'm connected to this particular database, and this is the user that I'm connected with. You can come in here and you can immediately start asking questions of the system. But you can also, you can come in here and you can build some of these quick prompts. So if you've got prompts that you run on a regular basis, you can build these quick prompts and you can just trigger them just with one click. But I'm going to go in here and I'll show you a classic one. So I could say, based on the net sales for calendar year 2025, who are my top 5 customers? All right. And then I ask the question. So now I'm using a non-technical view, and I'm not using our deep thinking mode. So what you're seeing happen here is you're seeing the AI tool interpret your intent. Okay. So it's understanding what it was that you wanted. It's then building an execution plan. It's saying, well, this is what I need to do to give you the answer to this question. And then it's giving you the answer to the question. So here are your top 5 customers based on net sales. So here's a key to this. If I had just said based on sales, as far as Business One is concerned, sales are invoiced sales. Okay, doesn't include credit notes. So if I had just said sales, it wouldn't have included credit notes. So I learned very quickly that if I want to get accurate information, I have to say net sales. All right. So one of the learnings is that not just AI Pure, but any AI solution is only as good as your ability to construct a prompt that provides the right guidance and provides the right intent that the AI engine can understand. A bad prompt gives you a bad result. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch on our technical view. Okay. So when I switch on the technical view, we're going to show you a lot more about what's going on in the background. And then we're also going to give you some more technical information about how we retrieve the data. Okay. So I'm going to ask another question. I'm going to say, based on my net sales, again, because I love net sales, for calendar year 2025, please analyze my sales reps performance. And then I can say, and give me recommendations on boosting sales for the remainder of this year by 20%. So this is a pretty complex question, okay? Now imagine in your business, you go to your sales manager and you say, hey, look at the net sales for last year, analyze all of our sales rep performance and give me some recommendations on boosting the performance for the remainder of this year. Sales manager says, yep, I can do that. Okay, great. When can you give me that answer? It's going to take me a bit of time to pull the data. I'm going to need to, calculate the reports. I'm going to need to think about it and structure it. And I can come back to you in about 2 days. All right. Well, with ER Pure, we simply ask the question, and now you'll see ER Pure is now going to give us the answer. And what it's doing here is it's streaming the answer out to you. So as the different components of the agent do their job, it's giving you the answer. So here you go. When we scroll up, here's our 2025 net sales by sales rep. Okay, and they've automatically been ranked. My sales manager with their net sales. And then, so it's basically said, this is what I understood that you wanted. Okay, this was your intent. And here's what I've done to give you the information. And so it's also then giving you the analysis, okay, recommendations to boost and the overall view, okay? I can switch on, if I want this to look in more detail, I can also switch on our deep thinking mode. And I can say, please run this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say, those of you who know the movie Casablanca, play it again, Sam. All right. So it's now going to run this again, and you'll see now it's giving me a more detailed view. So it's building the execution plan. It's going to reconfirm the SAP tables. It's going to pull the report, and it's actually going to grab some additional details for me. It's going to analyze the performance, the outliers, and the actions most likely to support a 20% lift this year. So step 1, discover the right tables. Step 2, pull the report. And you can see it is now basically going ahead and doing that for me. And it's streaming the information out. So once it's finished, I can come back up here and I can look at this in detail. So now, of course, at any point in time, I can come up here and I can generate a report from this information. So I'll say generate report. And you can see down here, another agent has kicked in and it's generated a conversation report that has 9 sections with 3 tables and 3 charts. So I can now take that report and I can export it out as a PDF. So now I've done that. I'm doing all this on a Mac, by the way. You now see here is the conversation report basically presenting all the information that the system generated for me with the information about the performance, the recommendations, the overall view, and then it's done a net sales 2025 versus 2024 analysis for me as well, with more key insights, root causes and drivers, anomalies and outliers. So those are a couple of very simple examples of what you can do with ER Pure. But you can also, for example, remember I said that it's kind of like the smartest B1 consultant you have. You can ask it questions about how to use SAP Business One. So you can come in here, you can say, how do I set exchange rates in SAP Business One? So again, it's the same process that the system goes through. It understands your intent. And in this case, it's actually discovered, because we've told it, we put guardrails on our solution that tells the system when you are looking for information, there are 2 places. If it's information that's the financial information, you get it from the SAP Business One database. Don't go making up the numbers, okay, if you can't find it. It'll tell you that it can't find the numbers or doesn't understand. And if you're asking questions about how Business One works, it's only going to go and look at official documentation, okay? So you can see here, how do I set exchange rates? So it's basically said it's discovered the official SAP document procedure. It's summarized the steps and it's added in practical guidance, pitfalls and recommendations. So it's discovered the information. I found the relevant SAP help context under administration, exchange rates and indexes, including this information. Here's the raw steps. Open the screen, make sure you've got foreign currencies already set up, choose the relevant month and year, and so on. Then there's some practical SAP notes. Now, trust is important. So you want to know, where did this information come from? ER Pure is actually giving you the links to that information here. So with one click, you can jump straight to the official SAP documentation as well. And you can quickly and easily validate the information, but you don't have to, because we've pre-validated it. So then it's also giving you, once again, your key insights. And it's giving you some guidance around, if you're potentially dealing with exchange rate issues, and, some of the challenges that you can encounter, and then some comparisons and benchmarks about how you might go and get this information and then put it in, and then recommendations. And then it comes back and it says, we've got a high confidence level in the procedure itself because it comes directly from the SAP Business One help content, which is discovered through the SAP knowledge tools, which we have already consumed and form part of our engine. So we're not constantly going out every time you ask the question and looking for this. All right. So, what this is really all about, it's about making sure that you can get answers to questions. You can get answers to questions about your data. You can get answers to questions about the application itself. But not only can you do that, you can also use it, if you have the permissions, you can also use it to transact. Okay? Now, there's a couple of different ways of doing this. one of the newer features that we've incorporated is what we call our avatar. I can click on the little button down here, and what it does is it connects our avatar. And surprise, surprise, thanks to Moshi, the avatar is actually me. So you can choose different avatar types, but just for the entertainment value, we've actually made it me. However, if I go in here, I'm actually just going to, you can see I've got the ability to choose the person and the voice, okay? And so you can tailor this to all of these different characters, okay? So I can say I'm going to pick Liv, and I'm going to use this voice, which is called Rachel, and I can save that. And now if I go and switch my avatar back on, and this can sometimes happen, that, you know, we're trying to work with the avatar and it comes back and says, hey, I just need a little bit more time to process this and get it ready. And there it is. So now here is my new avatar. And so if I switch the microphone on, unfortunately, I'm not sure if you can actually hear it when the avatar speaks, but I can switch the microphone on and I can actually now talk to ER Pure. It's just asking me, are you able to actually hear the avatar?
No, we're not.
Okay, all right. So again, this is just a little bit of a limitation, unfortunately, on the platform. But when I have the avatar active, it's actually talking to me, but unfortunately you just can't hear the voice. But what it enables me to do is I can come in here, switch the microphone on. Who are my top 10 customers for this year? You'll see it's now working on the request. It's recognized my voice, and now it's going to generate the answer. Now, if you could actually hear the audio, I apologize that you can't, when it gives you the answer. Okay, so I've just told it to stop because this is really only useful to you if you can read lips. But what you'll see is it's actually speaking to me. So I can have a complete interactive engagement with ER Pure utilizing the avatar. I'm going to switch it off now. But I can also utilize it for processing transactions. I'm going to give you another scenario. Another way that you can use ER Pure is through Teams. So I'm just going to quickly jump here into Teams. And this is our same ER Pure engine. In this case, we've actually provided it so that you can make it available to your users via the Teams interface. Because if you think about ER Pure being just like a colleague, the way that a lot of people talk to their colleagues now is with Teams. So we've taken that paradigm and we've utilized that. So I'm just going to go in here again. I'm going to say hello just to wake up my agent in Teams. And we have two agents here, the master agent, the query master. The difference, the query master is read only, the master agent is read and write. So again, I only speak English, so I'm going to pick English. I got multiple companies connected to my Pure deployment. I'm going to pick the company that I want, and I'm going to connect to the database. And now it's ready to go. I can do those same kinds of queries that I did before, but imagine you're a sales rep on the road. All you've got is your mobile phone. You can switch on the voice recognition on your mobile phone with Teams, and you can start talking to Pure. But I'm just going to type for the sake of the exercise. So I can perform transactions. So I can say, please, I always like to say, please create a sales order for Earthshaker Corporation. I'm going to try not to make any mistakes. If I make mistakes and the agent can't find the answer or it needs additional clarification, it's going to ask me, but I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. Please create a sales order for the Earthshaker Corporation for 10 units of item code A0001 and deliver them next Wednesday. So again, the system is understanding my intent. What was the question that I asked? And it's going to go ahead and construct the instruction for me. Now, again, back to the trust topic, human in the loop is really important. So every time we do anything that's going to write back to the SAP Business One system, we always ask for confirmation. So it's basically doing that here. I'm going to create a sales order for Earthshaker with 10 units of this item that's due to be shipped on the 1st of July. Okay, that's all great. I'm happy to confirm it. So I just say confirm and execute. So what Pure is now doing is it's making sure that I have the right permissions. And because I did, it's now utilizing the service layer and it's created the sales order. It's created document number 1199 and doc entry number 1220. So what I can do now is I want to see that. I just say open it up in the web client. And for those of you who are familiar with it, you'll now see the sales order 1199 has just opened up for me in the web client. You can see it's for Earthshaker Corporation. The contents, 10 units of A0001, and the delivery date is the 1st of July. So then I can come back here and I could say, please turn this order into a delivery. Again, remember, I can also do this with my voice. So the possibilities for this are endless. You've got technicians on the road. Imagine you've got a technician who's got a warehouse, who's got a van, and in that van, they keep all their parts. But the van is parked 15 minutes away. They want to check what the stock is in their van. With Pure, they can, assuming you're setting up each van as a warehouse, they can simply ask Pure, do I have this part in my van? And Pure is going to go and give them that answer straight away. And all they have to do is just pick up their phone, go into Teams and talk to it. So it's basically saying, hey, I'm going to create a delivery for the open line on this sales order. I'm going to confirm and execute. And then it's now done it successfully. I can click open in the SAP web app, but all I'm going to do, here's the sales order. Right now it's open. If I refresh this, you can now see that the sales order is closed. And if I look at my relationship map, there is my sales order and there is my delivery. And of course, using standard SAP Business One web client functionality, I can go and open up that transaction. So speaking of the web client, whilst we're here, not only can you utilize SAP Business One with ER Pure through Teams, through the web chat, but you can also, you'll see, you can run ER Pure as an extension from the SAP Business One web client. So what we've done is we've tried to make sure that we can deliver the solution to people where they live. Because this is one of the other key things that we've learned as we've gone down the path, is that you need to be able to give people the flexibility to consume the application any way they want. And of course, if you're using the traditional SAP Business One client, we like to call it the power client. If this is the web client, then the traditional one, some people call it the fat client. We call it the power client. It's a little bit less insulting, but you can use the power client and you can embed ER Pure web chat inside the Business One traditional client that you are using today. All right. So you've got all these different ways that you can work with it. And then we're running close to the end of our time, but I just wanted to also show you that we have the ability, whoops, I didn't mean to do sign out. That was a mistake. You can, now I've done that, you get to see the fact that we are tied to those identity providers. So I'm signed in with this ID provider. This is the dashboard where when ER Pure is deployed for you, you manage the entire system. So when we talk about the importance of governance and structure and guardrails and management with ER Pure, all of that is delivered for you out of the box. This is not like getting Claude and just asking it to connect into your SAP Business One so you can start asking it some questions. This is an enterprise-ready solution that we're built for you. And again, this is all live. If you said to us, can we have this installed tomorrow, provided your infrastructure was in good shape, the answer would be yes, and you would get access to all this. But what I wanted to show you here was our autonomous intelligent document processing. So ER Pure is an engine. The engine can work with all kinds of different documents. Right now, we support the ability to work with accounts payable, invoices, and sales orders. What do I mean? You can set up a shared mailbox, call it ap@yourcompanydomain.com. People can then email accounts payable invoices to that mailbox and it will pick them up, it will recognize them, and it will process them into SAP Business One. Same thing for your customers. If they send you purchase orders, you get them to send those purchase orders to you, to your mailbox. Let's say it was sales@yourcompanydomain.com. They email those purchase orders to you. ER Pure picks them up, recognizes them, and turns them into sales orders. I'll give you an example. Here's some that we've already done from previous demos. Okay, I've got a number that I've already turned into drafts. Okay, so here's examples of the transactions that have come in, some in pesos, some in US dollars, some in Australian dollars. But I can go in here. Let's take this one, for example. I can look at the details. And what you'll see here is you'll see the document that came in, recognized. Okay. Across here, you'll see everything that it was able to read from the document, what it identified from the document automatically, the item codes, the vendor, but it also determined that there was a tax amount mismatch, because we always go back and refer to your SAP Business One as the master with all of the rules. So whatever ER Pure does, it's always going to go back and make sure that it follows the guidelines and processes that you have set up with ER Pure, with SAP Business One, sorry. So the final takeaway on the learning behind this is that going down the path of just trying to take or build an MCP engine and connecting that to your SAP Business One is a very different proposition to what we're providing with ER Pure. We're handling everything to do with identity and the per user authorization. With a traditional single connection, you provide a single user, and then whoever is using that connection has the rights of that user. With ER Pure, it's all tied back to the individual user and their permissions in SAP Business One. Because we put the guardrails in where we've told the system to only work with SAP Business One data from your company and only use official SAP documentation sources, we prevent that hallucination that happens when you're using AI with no guardrails. And because SAP, or because ER Pure was built specifically for SAP Business One, we address what's called the semantic gap, which is the true understanding. An LLM only has an approximate understanding of an SAP Business One deployment. It does not know anything about your user-defined tables, your user-defined objects, your user-defined fields, all of that customization that you've done in your SAP Business One system. Whereas a solution like ER Pure understands that. So the big takeaway as you are contemplating going down this path and looking at delivering an AI solution or working with AI today with SAP Business One is that there are lots of opportunities to start doing this, but you need to be very, very thoughtful about the process that you go through, and you need to make sure that you have a very specific business case and a very specific set of business problems that you're trying to solve by deploying AI. Because otherwise, like I said, you'll get the AI. I have an expression, it's like you'll end up like a dog chasing a car. Once you've got it, once you've caught it, what are you going to do with it? Once the novelty wears off of having this cool thing, if you weren't trying to solve a specific problem, other competing priorities in the business will kick in, and you will have lost that opportunity to really utilize AI and get a business value from it, and do it right the first time. Okay, so I can see there's actually quite a lot of questions that have come through, so I'm going to rattle my way through. Moshe has actually been working in the background. Moshe Nachman is the co-founder of ER Pure. In fact, he's the technical genius behind ER Pure. So that's great that he's been there answering those questions. There are a couple of questions that are not yet answered. So what are the agents that are currently available with ER Pure? So we have the conversational agent, which works based on your SAP Business One permissions. It works across all of SAP Business One. So you can ask it questions about anything in Business One. You can process any transactions that's exposed by the service layer. You can facilitate and execute that transaction from ER Pure. And what do we use for document recognition? This is a great question. We actually have all of the back-end engines. We manage all of those for you. So we are utilizing the Azure Azure AI Foundry, and we use a whole range of different components behind that. Now, what we do is we are constantly evaluating if the tool that we're using is the right one. So at any point in time, we can be swapping the tools in and out of the back end of the solution. The beauty of that is you don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is utilize the solution. Okay. All right. I think, bearing in mind the amount of time we've got left, I'm going to leave it there. But I wanted to wrap up by thanking everybody for taking the time to come along. If you've got further questions and you'd like to know more about ERPure, then you can visit our website at www.erpure.ai, or you can reach out to me. You can find me, Richard Duffy, on LinkedIn. You can email me, richard@smbsolutions.com.au. You can find me anywhere on the internet. For those of you who know me, a bit of a plague on the internet, blog posts, and lots of ways of reaching me. So if you've got any further questions, we'd be more than happy to engage with you. This was not designed to be a sales pitch. It's really designed to share, what we've learned as we've been deploying ERPure, as we've been working on these AI projects. So I specifically haven't gone into explaining pricing and models and all those other different things. More than happy to have a one-on-one conversation with you about those topics, or potentially schedule another session where we can go through that in more detail. So I'm just going to hand back to Gary to close off, if you're still there, Gary.
Yes, I'm still here. Thank you very much for a great presentation today. I thought that there were some really good lessons learned. I also appreciate the options that the users now have compared to the earlier versions of ERPure, that you can really embed it in the way that you use SAP Business One and how specific it is to SAP Business One. We will be taking the video and just cleaning it up a little bit, and then pushing it into the Business One community discussion groups. And then anybody who registered for the webinar will also have access to the raw copy as well. So thanks again, Richard and Moshe in the background. And we look forward to having you on future Affiliate Insiders.
Great. Thanks very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye-bye.